Following World War II, Walt Disney Animation stagnated following failure after failure after failure. But all of that changed when a special little movie titled Cinderella appeared, which was both a massive gamble for the studio and the huge success that Disney had been begging for since Snow White way back in 1937. So then we entered the 50s era of Disney, aka Disney's Silver Age, the era of expansion, embracing what audiences love about Disney, and of course, the theme park. We all know about the theme parks. Probably been to one of them at least once at some point in our lives.
What the fuck?
The 50s was probably Walt Disney's greatest decade, and set up the Disney franchise for even more expansion in the future. And with every last endeavor, be it a movie, theme park, etc., the horizon just kept on getting bigger and more broad. By the 1960s, Walt was planning to go even further beyond than he ever did before, between opening up his own record label under the Disney name, setting up a new theme park in Orlando, Florida, and making a huge adaptation of a famous book called Mary Poppins. Walt was pretty much on top of the world at this point in time. Oh, and he was also making the Jungle Book. I don't know, I guess that was happening too. I don't know what else you want me to say other than that. Now, that's not to say Walt had practically nothing to do with the 1967 classic. Quite the opposite, really. The man originally in charge of the film's story was a man named Bill Peet, who was one of Walt's top writers who worked on pretty much every major animated release from the studio up to that point. But things didn't go as smoothly this time around as they usually did, because while Bill wanted to make the Jungle Book more like, well, the Jungle Book, keeping in line with the book's darker tone and mature lessons, Walt wanted to be more toned down and more marketable for a family demographic. The two butted heads, and eventually, Bill ended up leaving the studio altogether, with Walt reportedly shouting at him as he left, if he wanted real entertainment, go watch Mary Poppins. Bill would later state that he was glad he never responded to that insult, because he feared that he would regret it, as he would have insulted him right back. And that was the last time they ever saw each other alive. As a matter of fact, Walt, by this time in his life, was beginning to fade, and fast. You see, since the First World War, Walt had become a heavy smoker. Eventually, this bad habit would be Walt's undoing. And in November of 1966, a doctor's visit revealed he had lung cancer, and it was bad.
So we were all there sitting in the room. And the surgeon came in after the surgery, and he said, well, it was just as I suspected. The tumor had metastasized. I give him 6 months to 2 years. Of course, it was like dropping a bomb in that room. And as we got off the elevator on the floor, and I saw Ron go striding into Dad's room and then come out with his arms up like that, as though someone had pushed him back. And when we went into the room, I don't really, Dad, his hands were on his chest, and he was gone, and Uncle Roy was standing at the foot of his bed, and he was massaging one of Dad's feet, just kind of caressing it, and he was talking to him, And I don't know, it sounded like something like, well, kid, this is the end, I guess, and that sort of thing, and I saw his love as I've never seen it before.
It was 9:30 a.m. on December 15th, just 10 days after his 65th birthday.
Despite Walt's death, however, the film's production carried on. The film and Walt Disney Animation Studios as a whole would be taken over by Wolfgang Reitherman, one of the legendary 9 old men who finished the film to Walt's original design. The film was released almost a full year later on October 18, 1967, to both critical acclaim and financial success. And you already know why this movie got a remake. It's beloved by millions all around the world, and again, was a massive success. On top of that, the last few experiments of this live-action remake train proved to be very successful. Even though Cinderella was the only good one so far, but hey, they made money. But there was something different about 2016's Jungle Book, wasn't there? It's one of those you had to be there kind of things, The marketing was different, the movie looked different, it just had a different vibe overall compared to the other live-action films up to this point. It's, again, kind of hard to explain, as it really wasn't that different overall once we actually saw the movie. Even though we did just get Maleficent 2 years prior, this film just had a far greater impact on getting people hyped. And honestly, I was there too. The movie actually looked really good, and I was on board for it. Also, you had Jon Favreau directing it, and he was part of the MCU, so again, yeah, that just helped. And believe it or not, I actually thought the movie was good. And yeah, that's about it really. It's good. But unlike Cinderella, which was just all around a 7 out of 10 in basically every category, which made it a very boring movie to talk about, this movie's different. Some things about it are actually really good and well done, while other things are dumb and kinda stupid and dumb. But first, I guess we should talk about the original film. It's okay. It's definitely a fun movie with likable characters and good music, with I Wanna Be Like You being an unadulterated banger. It's a cute film, it just doesn't really have much of a story or point really, which is alright. It's obviously not trying to be super deep or anything. It's just a cute little adventure about this kid who doesn't want to leave the jungle and keep goofing off with his animal friends, like these elephants, or Baloo, or the Beatles, really. It's harmless, and honestly not a great note for Walt to really go out on. He's made better movies, admittedly. In fact, I feel like that draft from Bill Peet probably would have been a better movie, because it seemed like it at least wanted to stay true to the book, and the great message that it teaches about growing up in the real world. I bring this up because apparently that was the version Jon Favreau thought of when directing this movie, and you can kind of see it there. Like Cinderella, the movie does take the opportunity to see the flaws of the original film and actually works to improve upon them. On top of that, they also wanted to include more elements from the book and actually give this story more of a point, since it does want to, well, at least seem like it's a darker, more mature take on the story. But we'll go more into that later. But first, the garbage. So, let's start from the bottom, starting with...
Beat it, stupid cat!
So here's the thing about Shere Khan. He's come in various different forms over the years. In the original story, he hated man, but still felt bound to the rules of the jungle and believed that the wolves broke them first by allowing Mowgli to stay in it. Meanwhile, in the Disney version, he's practically the opposite of that. He's just a ruthless badass who does whatever he feels like and dares anyone to do something about it. So, in the original book, he's more of a lawful evil, while in the Disney version, he's more closer to neutral evil. And it seems at first, in this remake, they're going more for the book version. We get that scene where he strolls up to Peace Rock, he smells Mowgli for the first time and just lays it on the line that man is forbidden in the jungle and shouldn't be there. On top of that, he shows that he does have respect for the law of the jungle, as he doesn't just attack Mowgli right then and there, as whenever Peace Rock shows itself, nothing can be attacked or killed at it. It's a good way to establish both the complexities of the law of the jungle and explaining the motivation for the villain, which, alongside his own personal trauma of running into man, also strikes a good point. If they start bending the rules at any given time they like, when does it stop? It leads to interesting discussions on what constitutes as corruption and whether it applies to the right thing or not. It's a fascinating concept that this movie, unfortunately, never dives into all that much. Instead, after that one scene, it just starts feeling more like the Disney version, where Mowgli just opts to leave the pack altogether. You see, in the original story, Shere Khan had to use psychological warfare to get his points across. He speaks to younger wolves and convinces them that their leader Akela is wrong and should be overthrown. And as Mowgli grows up and Akela grows too old, these wolves side with Shere Khan. It's a very interesting concept that this movie kind of hints at some parts, like this one scene where Shere Khan is teaching these wolf pups about the cuckoo bird and how it will lay its egg in another bird's nest. But like I said, outside of a couple sparing scenes, it doesn't really explore that concept all that deeply. And look, I know, it's Disney, okay? They were never gonna go that deep into the themes the original book did, but I'm sorry, they are there though. They're right there in front of you. But alright, missed opportunities is one thing. How is Shere Khan in the movie? Well, at first, he's actually pretty cool. Like I said, that introduction scene with him was interesting. Then we get that scene where he ambushes Mowgli and tries to kill him, but that bull stampede gets in the way, and it was great. Then we have him go to the wolves and talk to Akela, and then he just outright murders him on the spot, and then he just kind of camps there, and...
I don't like your plan. It sucks.
Like I said, it was interesting to see him be more lawful evil. Yeah, he did attack Mowgli, but that's just hunting in the jungle. Seemed perfectly legal to me, honestly. But then he just kills Akela? why? So now Shere Khan is now acting like the Disney version, who just does whatever he wants? Well then why didn't you just take Mowgli at Peace Rock then? Apparently the law of the jungle prevents him from doing that, but he can just kill Aquila out of nowhere just like that? Didn't even bother eating him, he just threw him off a cliff. It seems to me like they're trying to combine both the version from the book and the version from the 1967 film without realizing that they're both completely different characters. They want to have the nuance of the book version that explored the themes of corruption, propaganda, and all that cool stuff, but they also want a villain who just does whatever they want. I mean, okay, I guess you could have that, but here's the thing. This Shere Khan is an idiot. His evil plan is to apparently just camp out at the wolves' den and just wait for Mowgli to come back. If he ever even does, this is stupid! Quick question, what if Mowgli doesn't come back? What if he made it to the man village perfectly fine? Oh, but he said to spread the word and all that. Yeah, too bad we didn't really see that happen. The only way Mowgli actually finds out about Aquila's death is because of King Louie and his own desire for the red flower. So, if it wasn't for that, Mowgli would have never found out about Aquila's death. Mowgli only returns to fight Shere Khan through sheer dumb luck. Like, thank God Christopher Walken really wanted that red flower. Otherwise, Shere Khan would probably just end up chilling with the wolves forever like a dumbass. Spawn camping's for bitches, Shere Khan. Everyone knows that. Even if it can be admittedly funny sometimes. Look, the Disney Shere Khan wasn't great either. He was a solid villain that worked for what the movie needed, but he honestly didn't get that much screen time and only had 2 scenes to fully shine, that being his interrogation of Kaa and the final battle. But regardless of that, at least he's actively hunting Mowgli throughout the movie. He's getting the job done because he's just so confident in his skills and believes he can't be beat. Meanwhile, in the book version, he believes in the law of the jungle and much prefers to follow it the best he can, while also playing it to his own benefit. He won't just kill Mowgli outright, rather he uses scare tactics and manipulation to convince the younger wolves that Mowgli is bad for the jungle and he's the only one that can solve the problem. You ever hear that saying, the system is broken and it needs to be fixed? Well, here, it's more like, the system is working exactly as intended and needs to be completely destroyed. Or at least that's how I see it. But here, Shere Khan has got to be one of the most confused villains I've ever seen. You want to make him complex and nuanced? Well then don't just have him murder Aquila and take over indiscriminately the way he does. You want him to be a badass that does whatever he wants? Have him say fuck the rules, I have money, and just do it! It's dumb and it makes no sense. Also, this movie really wants me to suspend my disbelief when it comes to the fight scenes. Like, you're seriously telling me a whole pack of wolves can't take on a tiger and win? Seriously? Sorry, but no, that's not happening. A pack of wolves would demolish a tiger. Maybe Shere Khan can beat Baloo in a fight alone, but all these animals, all at the same time? No, he's dead. What are you talking about? Alright, let's talk about King Louie. I won't lie to you though, King Louie was my all-time favorite character in the Disney version. He's just so damn fun, and I Want to Be Like You is a jam, so of course it makes sense to bring him back for the remake, but how would you even go about doing that? King Louie was actually an original character not tethered to the books at all. His upbeat nature couldn't possibly fit the more mature tone this movie's going for, right?
You know who I am?
No.
I am the king of the bad dialogue. Call me Louie.
Yeah, this was like hearing that Jack Black was going to play Bowser in the Mario movie. Everyone kind of collectively agreed this was the best casting in the movie. Not that any of the casting in this movie is bad, but this one just stood out as both the most unique and just made sense. You know, King Louie in the original was kind of a con man who tried to bargain with Mowgli by offering him a place to stay in exchange for fire, so rewriting him into this mafia boss is actually kind of genius. The way he speaks, the way he moves, it was honestly one of the best parts of the movie, up until... Yeah, it's time to talk about that. So, this movie isn't a musical like the original is, yet for some odd reason, they decided out of nowhere to have King Louie sing his song. It's odd, to say the least, which I guess you could argue is the point. King Louie was always kind of an oddball, but it's just so odd to hear an actual musical number in a movie that hasn't really had any yet. I mean, yeah, we heard the bare necessities earlier, but that wasn't really a big musical number like it was in the original film. It was just two friends singing a song. It's like singing in your car, it's not really the same thing. This is actually a musical number meant to progress the story and establish a character's motivation. And it's also the only one of its kind in the whole movie. It's made even weirder when you see on the movie's soundtrack that Scarlett Johansson, who plays Ka in this movie, did cover Ka's song, Trust in Me, but it only plays in the credits for some reason. Jon Favreau stated the movie wasn't going to be a musical, but it was going to have reimaginings of some of the original songs, even going so far as having the original songwriters for The Jungle Book, Richard and Robert Sherman, work on them. But that still raises the question, if Jon Favreau didn't want to make a musical, then why did he include this musical number? Did he just really like this one? I mean, points to him, he did choose the best song in the movie, but still. Pushing that aside, it also highlights what would slowly but surely become a recurring issue with these live-action remakes. Just how sluggish everything is compared to the original. Now, I know people are gonna hate me for saying this. I say it a lot in these reviews, and you're probably sick of hearing me say it.
No, don't do it. No, don't do it.
But in the original movie...
This guy is such a stupid, pretentious douche. He rants on amazing movies all the time and thinks there's nobody other than himself. He's a stupid asshole, and he can suck it for being a stupid douche.
Yeah, I am! In the original movie, I Want to Be Like You is a jazz number. It's vibrant, it's lively, you have dancing, Baloo is in drag, King Louie says Chewbacca a few times, and it's all great! But here, he's just sitting there. Menacingly! They try to make it seem like it's bigger and more lively than it is, but at the end of the day, it's still just him sitting there on an ancient throne. How majestic. Now, I know what y'all are thinking. It's a darker and more serious movie. It's not meant to be a big, vibrant musical number. Well, again, we're talking about how weird this is that it's the only musical number in the movie, but look at the credits of this movie. Look at him jump around this temple and roll around and stuff. It's clearly going to be like the original. But no, he's just sitting there not really doing anything. If you're gonna have a musical number, make it a musical number. Have Louis escort him outside and have him do all of this outside. Have the monkeys do some dancing. It'd be really cool, especially given how good the CGI genuinely is in this movie. It just makes it even more odd that this was included when the movie is overall not a musical. It's just weird, and I think it's the one thing everyone agrees is kind of an issue in this movie overall. Also, once again, a whole army of monkeys versus one panther and bear? Yeah, the monkeys are winning. It's not even a competition there, especially when their leader is a Gigantopithecus and could probably kill everything in this movie by itself. I'm just saying the Andy Serkis version didn't play around. They knew who'd win that fight.
There you go.
Beat his ass! Beat his ass!
So I know I've been pretty negative up to this point, but I assure you, outside of the villains, everything else about this movie is pretty darn good. Like, seriously, can we talk about how this is, to date, the best looking out of all these remakes? And that includes The Lion King 2019. You hear everyone going on and on about how in Mufasa, the characters emote now. And it's such an improvement. Like, wow, the characters did what they're supposed to do and should have done in the first place. Like, is that where we're at now? Being happy that we're getting what we should have gotten in the first place? It's ridiculous. Like, guys, the characters in this movie emote. You see them get angry, you see them get sad, you see them laugh and have fun. And this came out 3 whole years before Lion King, so this just proves that the characters in The Lion King not emoting and being as realistic as possible was a choice, and a bad one in my opinion. But that's about the coldest take when it comes to that movie. Nah, for real though, this film genuinely looks incredible. And I don't think it's just because the standard for these live action remakes and their CGI has dropped drastically in recent years with movies like Pinocchio and Peter Pan and Wendy. Even after almost 10 years, this film still holds up remarkably, especially when you realize that everything in this movie is on a green screen. Seriously, even The Lion King had to cheat with 1 or 2 shots that are live action. But to be fair, this movie does have a live action actor named Neil Sethi, who is genuinely incredible given both his age and the fact that he's acting entirely with just CGI animals. He's also acting next to big acting legends like Bill Murray, Ben Kingsley, Scarlett Johansson, and Knuckles the Echidna. This is the kind of thing that most actors, as adults, would struggle to do, but Neil did it so naturally, and really captured the spirit the original Mowgli had in the 1967 version. Speaking of which, pretty much all of the casting choices in this movie are pitch perfect. Bill Murray as the laid-back bear, Ben Kingsley as the strict Bagheera, even Idris Elba as Shere Khan. Even though the character himself was weak, he still has that elegance the original had. And even though I do have my problems with some of the world-building choices, mainly due to this movie going back and forth between being the book and the original animated film, I will admit, there are some cool things this movie does do. I like that scene where Mowgli helps the elephants. I like how Mowgli and Baloo's connection is formed through more than just a song number. I also did like how there was more focus on the wolves this time, and their actual relationship with Mowgli, especially Raksha, who pretty much raised Mowgli since he was a baby. And while it's not great, it's definitely a lot more than what happened in the animated film, where Mowgli just leaves and doesn't even get to say goodbye. Hell, I don't think the mom even had a name, let alone any dialogue. I get it though, it was 1967 and women back then only existed to raise the kids and just be eye candy. At least here, Raksha has dialogue? I don't know. She's still just a mom and her whole character revolves around that. Can you name a single personality trait to her other than just being the mom? I don't know. She's fine. Definitely an improvement over the original, but there wasn't much there to even begin with, so oh well. Baloo is still a lot of fun. He definitely has the funniest line in the movie by far.
What's a song?
You never heard a song before? Didn't the wolves ever sing?
I don't know. We recited the law of the jungle.
Let's look at the stats. I've got the facts. My money like Lizzo, my pockets are fat. Homie, I'm epic. Don't be a wap.
Kid, that's not a song. That's
Overall, there's just this wholesome vibe to the middle chunk of the movie where it's just Mowgli and Baloo vibing with each other. I like seeing Mowgli use tools and work to make his life easier in the jungle. It's one of those implementations from the book that I think actually do work. I like these additions to the world building of the Jungle Book. I think the score is really good. The songs, well, again, kind of odd and out of nowhere for this non-musical, are still good covers, and I think it's really neat that they brought back the original songwriters to update them. It's that kind of heart that's usually missing a lot of in these newer remakes. There's definitely a lot to like in this movie if you are just looking for a simple, fun adventure film of this kid exploring the jungle and making friends with the wildlife. But the question is it better than the original? Well, it depends, I think. This is a movie that's honestly pretty confused in a lot of areas, and it shows. It's trying to be a mix of both the 1967 classic and the original book at the same time, but both the movie and the book have wildly different tones, messages, and stories. One is a dark coming-of-age story that deals with the themes of corruption, manhood, and what becoming a man is all about, while the other is just a silly little romp with colorful characters and songs. Both are very different, but also very good in their own respective areas. So for me, it kinda depends on what you're looking for. It's doing this balancing act that unfortunately causes it to lack in both areas. On its own, it's a good movie. It's fun, it's gorgeous to look at, the characters are likable enough and all that, but honestly, if I had to pick, I'd go with the Andy Serkis version. Yeah, I bet you guys didn't even realize that there was another version, did you? I've been using footage of it to represent the book because that's what this is, an actual take on the book. It came out back in 2018 on Netflix, but everyone just wrote it off as either another Disney live-action remake, like really, they made a second one? Or they just saw it as a ripoff of the live-action remake.
You uncultured swine.
Either way, people paid it no mind, even though it's actually really good. Now yes, it's a different movie than the 2016 version, but it kind of makes my point more clear, I think. The original animated movie and the Andy Serkis version know what they are and try their best to stay true to that, while this version is just confused all the way through. Sometimes it wants to be like the book, but it also has to be like the animated version, and it just can't find the balance. If it is better than the animated version, then it's only by like 5% maybe. At least it has a story and more of a point to it than the animated version did, but the animated version is more honest about what it is and less confused overall. When I Want to Be Like You starts playing in the animated version, it makes sense and you just let yourself get sucked into the charm and fun that it is. But in the 2016 version, when it starts playing, you're just weirded out. I know this is a very well-liked movie, and many have called it easily the best live-action remake to date, which isn't saying a lot, to be fair. But so far, out of the ones I've seen so far, I still think Cinderella is a better movie overall, or at the very least, less flawed than The Jungle Book was, if that makes sense. Between these two, I would still watch The Jungle Book over Cinderella, but that's only because I have no passionate feelings for Cinderella whatsoever. But as a movie goes, I will acknowledge that it's just more focused on actually improving something that was very flawed from the start. This is also trying to do that, but also be its own thing at the same time, and in the end, it just doesn't know how to do that perfectly. Overall, I think this is a good movie, but it also kinda rubs me off the wrong way in how it can't pick or choose what it wants to be, you know? It's far from my favorite version of the story, but I can see why people like it. It's well acted, it looks phenomenal, it is overall a good movie. Not my favorite, but I liked it. Certainly more than a fucking direct-to-video sequel that I reviewed 4 years ago? Really? Only 4? God, it's felt way longer than that. I suppose Walt would be proud that his final movie struck a chord with so many people, even after all these years, and this movie did do enough to at least distinguish itself from the animated version. But hey, at least it was better than Mufasa, I'll give it that much. And maybe Through the Looking Glass? I don't know, I haven't watched that one yet. That's the next one I'm reviewing, by the way. That's how this video ends.
In my opinion, RaisorBlade is one of the worst YouTubers I have ever seen. You hear me, RaisorBlade? You can suck it for being a douche, and you can suck it for being a stupid, pretentious fucking prick.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks